Hello, fellow basement dwellers, and in today's video, I will be trying to justify the actions of a space marine known as Artemis. For those of you who don't know, Artemis is a space marine who is the chapter master of the Death Watch, and the Death Watch are essentially, they take a bunch of veterans from different space marine chapters and combine them into one chapter, so you'll have, Space Wolves, Ultramarines, everyone, and these guys pretty much work for the Ordo Xenos of the Inquisition. And Artemis is quite possibly the most racist character, not just in 40k, but in fiction. And I will be doing my utmost to justify his actions. Now, before I get into justifications, let's get into his big moment. So, the event that led to him putting on the Burger King crown started out with the Eldar being led by Eldrad Orphan. For those who don't know, Eldrad is pretty much the head honcho of the Eldar race, especially the Craft Worlders, but the Dark Eldar to an extent. And he was trying to awaken the ancient Eldar god of death, Yanid. So he was trying to wake up this ancient Eldar god, Yanid. And this god was the god of death. And the entire reason why he was trying to awaken this god was simply because the Eldar are a dying people, and the reason they're dying is because they're constantly having their life force sucked away from them by the chaos god of excess, Slaanesh, that the Eldar somewhat created, but I'll get into that later. And this ritual was going to awake Yanid in order to defeat and kill Slaanesh. And while they were performing the ritual, the Death Watch and Artemis would essentially storm the place, and Eldrad pleaded with him, begged him, that we will let you kill all of us. We will let us do this ritual, and we'll get on our hands and knees, and we will let you kill us. We won't fight back. And Artemis equipped his Burger King crown and began to fight the Eldar, which caused the ritual to fail, which would then cause the Eldar and Eldrad to flee. Hence, stopping the ancient Eldar god to be awoken, which then meant that Slaanesh couldn't be killed. Now, the reason why so many people hate Artemis is because not just his racism, but because it was so stupid. He could have had one of the 4 Chaos Gods die, and all he had to do was just wait for it to happen. Now, to justify Artemis' actions, I'm going to be going over what might have happened if Yanid was woken up and did vanquish Slaanesh. Now, do keep in mind, it's not 100% confirmed that Yanid would have been able to kill Slaanesh, but that's what the ritual was all about, but it's not actually confirmed if it would have happened. Alright, so the first thing to note is Eldar would not have allowed the Black Templars to actually kill him. The Eldar are objectively a very deceitful, trickerous, and incredibly powerful race. They would not have let themselves just be killed. They would not have upheld their word. They're somewhat quite honorable and do hold their own word to races they deem as worthy, but humans are not worthy. Even Eldrad, who's one of the more cooperative Eldar to humans, would not have just let that happen. But the main issue is the fact that the Eldar are a race that was created to fight in the war in heaven. Everything about them is to fight and win wars. And the only reason they're being held back currently is because they're constantly under the watch of Slaanesh. The Craftworld Eldar have incredibly powerful cycles, are incredibly fast, strong, agile, and have weapons that far outclass 99% of everything humanity has. And the thing is, there's only a few Aspect Warriors, or Wraithguard, are a big, big problem, because they can simply outpace and maneuver around human units. They don't have to defeat a human army head-on. They can just demolish its command structure by using decapitation strikes, or just by using the webway to move around. Especially the Craft Worlders. And the thing is Craft Worlders are still incredibly limited on how powerful they can become, because they have these things called Spirit Stones. Spirit Stones are essentially a thing that stops Slaanesh from eating their souls. So that way, Slaanesh doesn't eat those souls. They essentially put part of their soul in the Spirit Stone, and it helps protect them from Slaanesh as long as they don't become degenerate. And the thing is although those cycles are very strong, they can only use a very small fraction of their power, because if they use more of their power, the Spirit Stone won't really be able to protect and hide their soul from Slaanesh, because the bigger and more psychic powers you use in our world, the bigger and brighter your soul becomes in Materium. So Slaanesh and Slaaneshi demons can see how big your soul is in the warp, and will essentially eat it or kill it or infest it or whatever. And so that's why Eldoi cycles on craft worlds, when they use too much of those psychic abilities, they kind of get eaten or killed by Slaanesh. So the Eldoi on craft worlds are incredibly limited in their power, in their psychic power. And even though they're limited, they're still so powerful. They're so fast, they're so psychically gifted. And if they could use their psychic power, they would also become way faster, because they can use their psychic powers to increase their own physical abilities on top of, just throwing lightning at you. Like, I don't think people understand how strong Eldoi cycles would be if it wasn't for Slaanesh limiting their power. Well, if it wasn't for Slaanesh themselves and their Spirit Stones limiting their power. Essentially, every single Eldoi would be nearly as powerful as Ahriman of the Thousand Sons. Can you imagine if every single Aspect Warrior was an Ahriman level Psycho? And that's not just every Psycho. There are some that's way above that. For example, Eldrad, at one point in time, told the warp to calm down, and it did. There was not a single doubt in my mind that cycles like Eldrad essentially overpowered a portion of the warp and made it calm down for a little bit. So there was not a single doubt in my mind that Eldrad not being self-limited, limited by Spirit Stone, and being limited by Slaanesh, would be stronger than the Emperor, especially psychically. And there wouldn't be a doubt in my mind that the modern day, Eldoi cycles would be nearly that powerful. Not as powerful as Eldrad, because he is kind of like the main character of the Eldoi, but still, you would have cycles who are nearly as powerful as Magnus running around, and a whole race of them. And unlike Magnus, these guys can multiply. Unlike the Thousand Sons are such a huge deal because of how psychically powerful they are, even though they're so low in number. The Eldoi are not low in number now. The only reason the Eldoi are low in number is because there's not a whole lot of Spirit Stones, and an Eldoi has to have a Spirit Stone. Without that limiter, the Eldoi can just make millions of Eldoi. The Eldoi can just reproduce. The Eldoi still have all the stuff they had in the War in Heaven, but unlike the Necrons, who have to be cautious because every dead Necron is permanently dead, the Eldoi can simply just reproduce. What's stopping them from using their warp gates to go to bum heck nowhere on the edge of the galaxy and just build up mini empires to eventually challenge the Imperium? And the thing is, they can have a ton of empires in parts of the galaxy where the Astronomicon doesn't shine, or in parts where humans just don't really live, and then they can just pretty much teleport to Terra. They have warp gates going from all the way to the edge of the galaxy to Terra. Nothing's stopping them from simply, if a war were to break out, simply spawning in Terra and using all their Dark Age. I like to say, sorry if I say Dark Age technology. I keep messing up and saying Dark Age technology. The Eldoi didn't really have any Dark Age technology stuff. They had War in Heaven stuff. So if you hear me say Dark Age technology, that's just forced to habit. My bad. So they still have all this War in Heaven technology. They can just freaking mass produce on the edge of the galaxy and just teleport it to wherever they need it instantly. And that's the Craft Worlds. The Dark Eldoi are way worse. The Craft Worlds, at least some of them, can be somewhat talked to. Although there are a significant amount of Craft Worlds who just objectively want to cleanse the galaxy of the human race. Now, Eldrad might not want the extermination of mankind, but the Dark Eldoi certainly do. Now, the thing is the Dark Eldoi aren't too high in number, and aren't too strong of a military force, and don't want the destruction of mankind, at least now, but the thing is, they don't have Spirit Stones, so they essentially don't have cycles, because unlike Craftworld cycles, who can, still, I cast Testicular Torsion, they can't really have cycles because they don't have a Spirit Stone somewhat protecting and hiding their soul from Slaanesh. But they also have all of the super overpowered War in Heaven weaponry that the Eldoi had during the War in Heaven. They just can't use it because none of them are cycles. Without Slaanesh, they're going to be using all that weaponry. There's nothing And the thing is, they don't want mankind to go extinct because the Dark Eldar are a parasite feeding off of mankind. They need mankind to stay around so they can continue to raid less guarded planets so they can torture people. Unlike the Craft Worlders who have the Spillstones, these guys protect themselves from Slaanesh by torturing other races in order to make excess that Slaanesh feeds off of instead of their soul. Basically, they generate energy that Slaanesh feeds on instead of feeding off their soul. So that's why they don't want the extinction of humanity. But the second Slaanesh no longer exists, and they don't have to do that, nothing's stopping them from just hopping in the webway from Kamor, which is a city in the webway, and just going over to the capital, going over to Holy Terror, and using all their new, well, quote-unquote new, now usable War in Heaven technology to simply essentially exterminate this Earth or the entire solar system. Wiping out the human race, well, wiping out the human empire, but leading to the human race's extinction, essentially. Nothing stopping them from doing that and for them to slowly expand. Because the Necrons hid from the Eldar. Because every dead Necron's a permanently dead Necron. Every dead Eldar can be replaced. Not to mention, the Necrons are somewhat weak to psychic shenanigans. And this is before we talk about the Imperium being split in half between the light side and the dark side. The light side being still relatively well off, where humans can still travel around using the light of the Astronomicon. They can still travel quite well. And the dark side being where humans can barely travel because they can barely see the Emperor's light. And mankind's enemies are taking advantage of that by pillaging and demolishing because they can no longer send Space Marine chapters or guard regiments to protect their own planets. If Slaanesh no longer existed, the Dark Eldar are going to leave Kamor. Well, not all of them, of course, but a massive amount of them are going to leave Kamor and begin to set up cities and Eldar worlds on former human planets. There's nothing stopping them from going to a human planet that is now essentially cut off from the Imperium, taking it over, killing all the humans, and building a Dark Eldar empire. And then what's stopping the Craftworld Eldar from forming their own coalition to set up Craftworld Eldar, well, it wouldn't really be Craftworld Eldar, but essentially setting up normal Eldar planets that would be kind of, competition / not Dark Eldar planets. Almost having like a Cold War between the Craftworld Eldar, who are now having their own stable empire, and the Dark Eldar. Which the two of them wouldn't really be fighting, it would just be kind of distrustworthy, but obviously still working together to get rid of any Orc Wars or any remnants of the human empire. And yes, I do know Lionel Johnson is on the dark side of the Imperium, but without plot armor and the Dark Eldar having all of their War in Heaven tier equipment and themselves being Arwen or above level cycles, yeah, the Lion is going to get killed very quickly. And Guilliman could devote a massive force to kind of slow the Dark Eldar's advance, but do you think Guilliman is dumb enough to take away military forces that need to be used against fighting the bugs and put them against an absolute meat grinder war against the Dark Eldar with all of their War in Heaven tier stuff? Every guardsman, every spaceman you send against the Dark Eldar and the Craftworld Eldar unleashed without being confined by Slaanesh is just going to be a massacre. It's an entire army of just god-level cycles. You're not going to win that. So, essentially, humanity would pretty much just be sacrificing half their empire to the Eldar. Now, yes, the Craftworlders, some of them are a bit nicer, and, wouldn't be exterminating human planet, but a lot of them would. Like, a lot of the most racist Eldar are from certain Craftworlds, and they would want to be setting up their own empires to not only compete against all sorts of horrific aliens, but against the Imperium and the Dark Eldar Empire. Not to mention, the Silent King is trying to team up with humanity to defeat the Tyranids, which he probably wouldn't be doing. He would be teaming up with Imhotep the Stormlord. Although those two Necrons do hate each other, they might team up just to defeat the Eldar. So either way, the Dark Side of the Imperium would essentially just become War in Heaven 2.0, with any human forces being left there being butchered by either side. Not to mention, literally, at any point, the Dark Eldar or even the Craftworlders could just attack Holy Terror and leave both sides of the Imperium in the dark, which would mean that the race would go extinct. So with Gilliman having to take all of the Imperial forces against the Tyonids, not being able to devote anything to stop the Eldoi empires, yeah, by the time the Imperium gets a hold of itself and pushes back the bugs, and the Tyonids, of course, and is able to launch a crusade against the dark side of the Imperium, they'd be cooked. By then, the Eldoi would already have empires. They'd be mass-producing, let's just say making more Eldoi, and would also be mass-producing War in Heaven's type technology. Which, War in Heaven Teal Eldoi would absolutely crush anything humanity has, even from the Dark Age. And yes, I know Gilliman did have a massive crusade to reclaim worlds on the dark side of the Imperium, but the Imperials can't even properly travel in the dark side of the Imperium. Half the stuff they send gets lost in the warp, or goes crazy, or gets attacked by random Xenos. The Eldoi don't need the Astronomicon. They can travel perfectly fine using the Webway. If the Eldoi want to take a planet, the Imperials can put their full backs against it, and they're still going to take that planet. Because if they send a massive crusade, if they send a large amount of Space Marines, they can just keep cutting off. Even if they do take that planet, the Eldoi can just exterminate that planet using all sorts of crazy technology, or can simply leave that planet isolated and cut off. And even then, you don't want to piss off the Eldoi, because again, they can just teleport. Using the Webway, they can just open a Webway gate on Holy Taylor's moon. And not to mention all sorts of other spots. So, oh, what's that? You led a massive crusade against the Dark Eldoi Empire? Because of that, yeah, we are now going to attack millions of your planets, just going and exterminating them, and then leaving. Because that's what the Eldoi can do. The Imperials can't travel nearly as fast. The Imperials can't keep up with them using the Webway. Especially when half the galaxy is dark. So, yeah, if the Eldoi actually want to, they could reestablish an empire on the dark side of the Imperium, and would be much stronger than the Imperium in not too long. So yes, Oidamus, the most racist character in 40k, was to an extent justified. Now don't get me wrong, is my theory of the Eldoi forming an empire wrong? Maybe, probably. Is the fact that you don't want these guys being unfathomably strong psychos who at any minute could just destroy Earth? Also very likely, because again, the Dark Eldoi need humans to survive. The Dark Eldoi have never attacked Terra because they need the human empire to survive. With the human empire just being competition, they might just end it by attacking Earth or exterminating the entire effing solar system. Who knows what kind of technology the Dark Eldoi have and can't use. It's pretty much confirmed that they have all this crazy OP war crime technology. They just can't use it because you need psychic energy to use it, and they can't be psychos because of Slaanesh. With Slaanesh gone, they could use all this stuff again. So yeah, Oidamus was kind of right. Not to mention, you also don't want a little Eldoi god of death running around. Please leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Do you think I am absolutely insane thinking that the Eldoi need to have Slaanesh on their neck? Because, I mean, at least having one Chaos God who has its, eyes set on two different targets, as opposed to the other three who just want humanity's destruction, I think Slaanesh, in a weird way, is a net positive. At least as long as the other three exist. If all Chaos could be wiped out, that'd be wonderful, but, I think we might want to keep Slaanesh around for a little bit to make sure that the Eldoi don't go too insane. Please leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Sorry that I kept going back and forth, crazy everywhere. This is a theory I've been working on for a while, so I was a bit excited. Thank you so much for watching the video, and I will see you in the next one.